So let's talk about the period between 1200 and 1450. This was a time when the world, for the first time, really started to connect. Trade routes were buzzing with new ideas, new goods, and new people. But this explosion of connectivity was a real double-edged sword. It brought incredible progress, sure, but it also unleashed a catastrophe that would literally change the course of human history. Okay, let's really dive into this. Picture these massive trade networks, right? The very same routes that were delivering life-changing new foods and causing populations to boom were also, at the exact same time, paving the way for environmental ruin and carrying this invisible, devastating killer across continents. It's a tale of both miracle and menace, traveling completely hand in hand. All right, first up, let's look at the miracle side of the equation. We're going to start with the good stuff, how the movement of food crops literally planted the seeds for a brand new world. Our journey here begins with a single, pretty remarkable grain. It actually started as a gift, traveling from what we now call Vietnam all the way to China. And this one little grain would go on to completely reshape the future of the world's most populous nation. And this is it, Champa rice. You could call it a true super crop of its time. Its genius was its speed. It ripened so fast you could get 2 harvests a year, and it was tough, able to grow in places that were prone to drought. This unlocked huge areas of land in China that were previously unfarmable. And the result? Well, it wasn't just more food. It was a massive population explosion and a huge migration of people southward, which completely changed the country's landscape and its centers of power. Now let's hop over to another continent. The connections here weren't just over land. We have Indonesian sea merchants carrying a simple fruit that would end up having an equally transformative impact on Africa. That fruit? The banana. When it arrived in sub-Saharan Africa, it provided this incredible, calorie-dense food source that fueled major population growth. And this wasn't just happening in one place. At the same time, you've got Arab merchants spreading things like sugar and citrus, changing tastes all over the Middle East and beyond, and caravans were bringing all sorts of new fruits and vegetables into Europe, introducing people to flavors they had never experienced before. But all of this growth, all of this incredible agricultural success, it came at a really high cost. And that price was paid by the environment itself. The Earth was starting to show the strain. And this shows you the direct and pretty devastating consequences. In southern Africa, for example, the success of cattle farming led to overgrazing so severe that the huge city of Great Zimbabwe had to be abandoned. Over in Europe, the constant demand for more farmland led to massive deforestation, just stripping the land bare. It just wasn't sustainable. The land was, quite literally, being exhausted. And as if that wasn't enough, nature decided to throw a major curveball. The climate itself started to cool down in a period we now call the Little Ice Age. So this put even more pressure on an already fragile food system, making it that much harder for farmers to grow what they needed to survive. But the environmental damage, as bad as it really pales in comparison to the other menace that was traveling along these very same trade routes. We now turn to the darkest chapter of this story, the arrival of the bubonic plague. And what's just terrifying is how fast this all happened. It starts in southern China, and the Black Death gets carried west by fleas hitching a ride on animals in Mongol caravans. In just 15 years, it crosses all of Asia and slams into Europe, spreading like wildfire along the exact same trade routes that had brought so much wealth and prosperity. The scale of the devastation is, well, it's almost impossible to really wrap your head around. Across Eurasia and North Africa, the plague just carved a path of destruction. Our best estimates suggest as many as 200 million people died, a staggering loss of life that would take centuries to recover from. Now, let's just zoom in on where it all started. In China, where the outbreak began, and in the regions right around it, a staggering 25 million people died in just the first 15 years. This was the initial wave that would soon wash over the rest of the world. And then in Europe, where the plague became known as the Black Death, it wiped out an estimated 1/3 of the entire population. Just stop and think about that for a second. In towns and villages across the continent, 1 out of every 3 people you knew, your family, your neighbors, everyone, was gone. The Italian writer Boccaccio, he actually lived through it, and his words just capture the complete social collapse. This wasn't just a medical crisis, you see. It was the breakdown of society itself, where the most basic human bonds of family and community were just severed by pure terror. But out of this unimaginable horror, something totally unexpected began to happen. With so many people gone, there was a massive labor shortage. And suddenly, the surviving workers, the peasants, the artisans, they had leverage. They could demand better wages, more rights, and this started to chip away at the very foundations of the feudal system, that rigid social structure that had locked people into place for centuries. So let's pull back and take a look at the big picture. How did this period leave a permanent and, well, a profoundly mixed legacy on the world? Okay, so here it is, the final balance sheet. On one side, you've got the spread of these vital crops, you've got population growth. On the other side, you've got irreversible environmental damage and a pandemic that killed millions upon millions of people. This was the true nature of global connection back then, a powerful force for both creation and destruction. And all of this leaves us with a really critical question for our own time. I mean, we've replaced the Silk Road with the internet, we've replaced caravans with airplanes. Our world is more connected than ever before. But are we any wiser about the hidden dangers that might be traveling along our own global networks? It's a lesson from history that honestly feels more relevant today than ever.